So you really need to clean your environment. The toxins, the environment, the dioxins from the air, the pesticides, herbicides, chemicals that compromises you and feeds the virus. The stress. Stress is number one. We talked about it. You have stress, you have EBV. When you have stress also, you deplete your nutrients. You have to replete them, especially B vitamins. So I would say chronically ill person with EBV, B vitamins, methylated are absolute must.
Hi and welcome everybody to the Fertility podcast, where you will be empowered to learn how to thrive and conceive with endometriosis. If you want to understand more about your endometriosis, how it can affect your fertility, and how you can personally take action to optimize your health and life, then this is the place for you. I am your host, Lizzie Alexander, founder of the Fertility Specialist. As a doctor of marine ecology turned integrative nutrition health coach and holistic massage therapist, I bring a unique perspective to our discussions. Most importantly, I know what it's like to experience chronic fatigue and endo and struggle for years with primary and secondary infertility. I am now a super busy, thriving military wife, business owner and mother of an adorable little boy. Join me every Wednesday as I dive into topics that will support and guide you, from knowledge about endo and conceiving to nutrition, lifestyle and mindset, pain management to assisted fertility support, functional nutrition and testing, and much more. This podcast is designed to enhance your knowledge so you can explore the whys behind your endo and fertility struggles, whilst moving forwards towards thriving and conceiving. Please note that this is not meant to replace your current medical advice. Together, we will explore a holistic approach to healing that equips you with a toolbox full of diverse strategies to help you manage your endo and enhance your fertility journey. So sit back, relax, and enjoy listening. This episode is brought to you by my Ultimate Endo Fertility Library, available through the Endo Fertility app. This app, available on Apple and Google Play, makes it super easy to access valuable resources and courses right on your phone, even offline, making it perfect for meditations and travel. Inside the free library, you will find essential first steps to support your healing journey, including a quick start ebook, symptom tracker, delicious recipes, workbooks, guided meditations, and other helpful resources. So make sure to check out the show notes for the link to start exploring these resources today. Hello, lovely listeners. So welcome to episode 55 of the Fertility podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce an interview I did a few weeks ago with the wonderful Kasia Kynes, who is Doctor of Clinical Nutrition, and she's also the CEO and founder of the Epstein-Barr Virus Global Institute. Now, Dr. Kynes has an impressive background as a wellness expert and author of the Amazon bestseller Epstein-Barr Virus Solution, which is a beast of a book. I have to say, there is so much information in there. It is well worth buying it. Kasia has dedicated her career to helping individuals recover from chronic Epstein-Barr virus infections, or EBV for short. Now, we dive deep into EBV, what it is, symptoms, and the potential link between EBV, endometriosis, and fertility. Now, Kasia also shares her evidence-based methodology for long-term recovery for EBV and discusses how environmental factors, particularly dioxins, can trigger EBV reactivation. Now, Kasia's passion for debunking misinformation about EBV really comes through, you'll see in this interview. And we really discuss the importance of understanding personal triggers, and the role of stress is one of those mold also in managing health. Now, this episode is packed with invaluable insights for anybody navigating the complexities of endometriosis and fertility challenges. It also is great for anyone who's had glandular fever, also known as mono in the US and some other countries. I have to say, I had some aha moments in this episode. make sure to check out the show notes, because in the show notes, there are also just a couple of references relating to where more recent research in sort of the late 2010s, and then like 2023, 2024, there's been some research around EBV potentially activating and early, basically, endometriosis. Is to do with the estrogen receptors. So take a look at that. If you really want to dive into that, if you are a practitioner or you're someone that really wants to know more, then make sure you check out the show notes. So grab a lovely warm herbal tea if you can do, or you might be listening to this on the go, but prepare for an eye-opening conversation, because it may just provide you with the support and understanding that you need on your journey to wellness, or it might just be something that's interesting. So let's dive in. Kasia, hi. I am really pleased to have you on this episode today, and it is just wonderful to have you here as a guest. And thank you also, because this is your weekend. Hopefully you've had some time off already this weekend.
Yeah, I do. I'm pleased to be here. Thank you for having me.
So what I'd like to get started with is if you could explain a little bit around what Epstein-Barr virus, EBV, is, and how it's typically contracted, just to explain to my listeners who may not know much about it.
It's a herpes virus, and it's been around for over 1 million of years on this planet. It's been with us. So based on studies, 95% of global population walks with it. So almost doesn't matter. We can assume that we have it. It's contracted through blood, intercourse, saliva, kissing. So, but with that, not to panic, because I work with so many people, and most are married, mostly women, most are married, and it doesn't mean that the partner has full-blown EBV. It's just dependent on the triggering factors and the strength of the immune system, how a person responds to stress. There's a lot of personal factors, environmental factors, dietary factors that can trigger the virus. And everybody's different. And men are chemically different, wired differently, respond to stress differently, if we look at studies even, than women. So women will have more propensity towards chronic EBV.
Okay,
more sensitive men will have more likelihood of developing EBV, depending on circumstances. So so there is I can say, based on all these years of working with this community, there is certain profiling. We have jokes about it in our community. So
what's the typical kind of, if you say you've got profiling, what is the typical profile then for a female and a male?
So in the EBV community, the false premise is that the EBV is the cause of all your evil. All your problems, health problems, are caused by EBV. But the truth is, if you look at the patterns, very pattern-oriented, I really look at patterns. The patterns are EBV is an opportunist, and I really drill it into people. It is the result of something that happened, because we all carry it. So let's say, for me, it took my personal stress for moving to house number 4 in 5 years due to mold, financial stress, marital stress, and then the EMF stress, because the new house had a smart meter and I was waiting to have it removed. And actually, that was my first EBV reactivation in my life, because my bucket full tipped over. And I didn't know I had mold. This was supposed to be a mold-free house. The inspector missed it. He was a little lazy, didn't go into the attic. Didn't walk into the attic. So anyway, in a person with chronic EBV, what's very, very clear in those that are listening and have chronic EBV, it's like, yeah, that's me, is very stressful events, personally stressful event, emotionally stressful event, losing your loved ones, losing your employment, losing your partner, losses, betrayal, something that is really, really strong, or accidents, severe accidents, injuries, when you are compromised. Whatever compromises you on any level, physiologically, emotionally, that can be the tipping point, because that's an opportunist and it exploits a vulnerable organism. So when you are, let's say, stress is number one. Stress is the number one reactivating trigger. Everybody will tell you. Everybody knows or remembers that time.
Yes.
When they tipped over first time.
I
That's
just have
just
too much.
that's just what it is. And it's not for the lack of trying. It's not for, not knowing. This is what it is. But we get more compromised these days.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing patterns, especially post-COVID, that was very stressful for people. I'm seeing lab levels that I hadn't seen before at the level like early antigen, really in triple digits and over the range. I had never seen early antigen over the range before.
And you
That's
think
really
that's
severe. It's really profound when you see that. And so I think our toxic load is unprecedented. The water, the pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, Roundup is everywhere, contaminates everything. It's just so insidious. The water, the air. We have more forests, wild forests burning. It's more common. It's longer. Dioxins themselves reactivate EBV. That's very well studied. And so dioxins are in fireworks. So every early July, we remind people not to sit by fireworks, to watch from inside, to have an air filter, to sit by a fire pit away from the wind. And by the way, dioxins are implicated in the endometriosis. It's one of the chemicals that has been implicated along with PCBs.
Yeah.
Oh, they just found a study earlier this year, looking at tampons in metal contaminations. They found 16 metals, including lead
In tampons.
and
Oh.
arsenic in all of them.
Oh my God.
There is
Seriously.
no known safe level of lead exposure. None, zero.
I mean, I knew there was toxins, but not heavy metals. That's
Heavy
insane.
metals and metals, lots of them
I mean,
in all products. And the funny thing is, I'm looking at the study, they're not disclosing the products. So that's
mm,
already a conflict of interest. You need to disclose the product, like, the brands.
yeah.
And then the scientist says, not to worry. We don't understand, it doesn't mean it's going to be absorbed. What are you talking about? It's internally inserted into your body. So the body will aggressively attack it, probably, because there's so anyway. And we have a lot of environmental pollution from electromagnetic field, and that actually really triggers EBV. And I have to fight my community sometimes and say, turn it down, and people feel so much better. And then there's another layer to it, which is mold, the building practices.
Yes.
Just like I would never buy a brand new car because of off-gassing.
Yeah.
I would have a hard time buying, moving into a brand new house. A mentor of mine developed severe, she got very compromised with environmental sensitivities. She bought a house like that, beautiful. I was, the kitchen, and she's a nutritionist like me, the kitchen was amazing. I was like salivating over it. But she developed almost autoimmunity because of off-gassing. But then another layer in new buildings is the craftsmanship is gone, and the building materials breed mold. The way we build in this country, we build fast, we build a lot, but the materials inside breed, any moisture will breed mold. So 51% of buildings have had water damage one way or the other. And when you have mold, you have EBV, most likely. when you have mold and Wi-Fi, there was a study that showed that the mold produces much more mycotoxins when exposed to Wi-Fi. We don't know if it's just happy or if it's irritated. It's the same with EBV. It's more aggressive when you have Wi-Fi. And that's what happened to me. I had that combination of mold I didn't know I had at that time. The smart meter was right there and my desk was just too close to it. And I developed vertigo. And if you don't know what you're dealing with, people mostly when they get sick, they don't see all this, so it's all mystery. They get very anxious. They don't know what's going on. They go from I could go to neurologist. I could go to 5 different physicians, get my brain tested. But all I needed to know is recognize the triggers and what it was. And so
So what's the symptoms then? What are the typical symptoms associated with
EBV?
Active? Yeah. So what is the difference, first of all, between an active EBV? Because I know I've heard of you talking about active EBV infection and like chronic. So what are the common symptoms with active EBV infection?
Okay. So the active EBV is something that doctors call mono or glandular fever. Okay. That's the acute infection. It's really misunderstood because you go to the doctor, you feel like crap, you feel like you have the worst flu in your life. You're literally like down in the pits. All you can do is sleep. And the doctor will tell you we can't do anything about it, go and sleep. And about 6 weeks, 4, 5, 6 weeks, you'll be back on your feet. And many people do bounce back and live their life. But there is a percentage that will not. So when I have a little thing that I tell people, let me see. So when you're healthy, your baseline is here. But after mono, for some people, the baseline starts sliding. And you get better and worse, but way below your past baseline. Oops, sorry. So you never go back. You never go back to, it's like, shortcut. You never go back to where you were before. You worse, slightly worse.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
So it's a problem that is not recognized. There's no solutions for mono because doctors don't have any trainings. They don't look at research. They just don't look at medical literature. And that's the problem. That's why I wrote the book. 1/3 is just medical literature, so they can look at it and think, okay, I was wrong. There's something to it. So the population that doesn't get better is the population that develops something in medical literature called mononucleosis syndrome or chronic mononucleosis syndrome, which really matches chronic fatigue syndrome.
I was going to ask that. Are they very similar? Because I had chronic fatigue.
Yeah, so the two hallmarks are extreme brain fog and extreme fatigue. And the fatigue is extreme to the point where you can drag yourself from the sofa to the kitchen, back to the sofa, and that's all the expenditure of energy you have for the day. That's it. People don't understand it because they look good. So, you don't have bleeding ulcers. So they may look really, and that population really tries to figure it out. They try different diets and this, because they want to get better. But it's very anxiety driven because when you don't understand that it's the virus, you don't understand the virus, you don't know what's behind the corner. So people then start reading, and there's autoimmunity, there's cancer risk. So if they know they have EBV, you live in fear because you don't know what you're going to develop.
But if you're at the stage where, if you've been to the doctor and you've had fatigue, because of course fatigue is just one of these, such a hard one. And I get that it's hard from a medical point of view because you've got to unpick like why, and not everyone unpicks that. Why have you got that fatigue? And obviously you have an iron test, you might check your thyroid, a doctor might check your thyroid. And I remember when I had chronic fatigue and I was pretty much bedridden for a year, and they tested for most things, cancer markers, thyroid. I mean, I can't remember what it was, and basic things, and went, oh, we don't know what it is, so you've got chronic fatigue. It was just that kind of like, we've tested for stuff, it must be chronic fatigue. Go away and rest. And you're like,
that's exactly what it is.
How long? Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. But when you're bedridden for a year, chances are it is that virus. That's what it does.
Which is interesting because when I look back in my history, it is interesting talking to you about it because I then have gone back in my history and gone, right, okay, so I had painful periods, I was passing, I was fainting out, and I put that fatigue down to actually the endometriosis. But I had some trigger points. I had a lot of trigger points. I went through a stressful period. My first year at university, I was living in a mold-ridden house. It got to the point, like you said, with a bucket. Very interesting. This bucket,
there's a
the
bucket.
point of it was so full, and I had a trigger, and I got pushed over the edge.
Yes.
But
That's
nobody
exactly what it is.
tested for EBV, or if they did, I didn't get told about it, interestingly.
Yeah, there's also one thing when you said they tested thyroid.
Well, I don't know. Did they? I don't know.
Oh.
I was 22. It was
Yeah.
20 years ago, over 20 years ago. I've no idea. They just went, we run a load of tests. It's nothing we can say what it is. I'm assuming it was thyroid, it was iron, it was the basics. Was it? I've no idea.
We will never know, but I just want to make a point because there's a couple very serious issues in testing in medical practice. One is EBV and the way it's tested. And it's missed, and then it's misinterpreted. And so that potentially are thousands of people misdiagnosed, unfortunately. And then they spend years and thousands of dollars going a rabbit hole pursuing something, trying to get better. But there's also the thyroid that I want to share because it's especially with the topic of endometriosis and infertility and all that, thyroid is huge, right?
Yes.
But the point in terms of the EBV, the point I want to make is that if you look at studies, low thyroid, hypothyroidism, 95% of cases of low thyroidism, hypothyroidism is actually not low thyroid, it's an autoimmune Hashimoto's thyroiditis. The problem is that doctors don't test it routinely along with everything else. It needs to be tested. You need to add 2 antibodies. This is for the ladies listening. Ask for 2 antibodies to Hashimoto's. That needs to be done because of all the triggers for Hashimoto's, I would say EBV is the most common. H. pylori is the second. Gluten is the third, I would say. But EBV is big. So in our student population, we have a subpopulation with coming in with Hashimoto's. In that group, many of them were misdiagnosed. And so every student that enters my program, we have one-on-one. So I have their medical history, and I often recommend looking at the thyroid history. I recommend proper testing. And sure enough, they were complaining about all these issues and they were suffering from low thyroid on medications, but that's not a match. And then when they tested properly with their doctors, they found out that they indeed had Hashimoto's. And once we focused on EBV work, Hashimoto's went into remission.
Yeah.
So I need ladies to know that because that's the epidemic, the autoimmune thyroiditis, Hashimoto's. That's where we need to focus, not just low thyroid and medications. That's a mismatch.
Yeah, and I see that quite a lot in terms of the fertility, is that obviously that in itself, the thyroid is so important for the fertility, as you well know. Often many doctors don't consider the importance of that in terms of the threshold, and we could talk about that all day. But what's also interesting, like you say, the antibodies are quite often missed. And of course, with endometriosis, which I don't know, they still don't quite understand what's going on in the immune system, but it has all the hallmarks of an autoimmune disease, but it's not quite. So many of my clients have autoimmune thyroid issues and then potentially various other autoimmune, there's a lot of sort of comorbidities in terms of autoimmunity, which is really interesting. And it's kind of like, and the thing that I really like to try and understand is where are the triggers in any of this? Where are the triggers? What are the stress?
I can tell you the biggest triggers. The biggest triggers is there's a couple of things. Toxicity, environmental toxicity is huge because with hormones, with estrogen, you're playing with estrogens everywhere. Even the cream you put on, the chemistry created is based on xenoestrogen, pesticides, herbicides, xenoestrogens, chemicals in the environment. So you have a lot of exposure to very strong estrogenic compounds, and to the point where we actually need more natural estrogens, like in flax or soy, just healthy sources in food to bind to cell receptors in a healthy way, because you do need estrogen to prevent the xenoestrogens from binding, because they are so aggressive. They are not normal estrogenic activity. They are very aggressive, and this tips you over. So for women, that's really important, cleaning that up. We really it's not an option to live an American lifestyle. I live in the States. So, if you breathe the air and drink the water and eat the food they provide, you think you're eating food. You're not eating food. You're eating a lot of chemicals. You actually have to really take the effort to have clean water, to have clean air, to have clean diet, to minimize what you put on the skin. Tampons are not tampons, apparently. Lead in tampons. Somebody tested. If they didn't test, you would never know.
No, you would.
I mean, they tested, and a few years ago, they tested different salt products for microplastics. Most had microplastics. They did a study in different countries in Europe. They tested stools for microplastic. Every person in the test had microplastic in the stool. Microplastic, plastic also is going to modulate signal hormonally. So, yeah, this is our reality. I mean, this is not conspiracy theory. We're living in it.
And sorry.
Oh, so that was one. That was one level.
Yeah.
The second level for women is that women carry the world. They don't have a tribe to rely on. There's no division of jobs. They don't get a doula. At least in the States, they don't get a doula like in France, when you get a doula paid by the government and you have a long period when you can recover with a baby and bond. No, a woman has so many responsibilities. There's no downtime. You have to be a lover, a partner, a wife, a mother, and then you have to take care of the aging parents. Oftentimes, Alzheimer's is involved. It's very traumatic, expensive. You're pulling at different strings. This is not normal. This is beyond capacity, and women hold it all. Women are chauffeurs for the kids. I mean, in this culture, at least, it is really overloaded. So women are vulnerable because the women they are wired differently from men. So they respond to stress differently. It hits them harder. They lose more serotonin in stress than men. So this is there's no balance there. So we talk about toxicity, we talk about lifestyle, and then the stress of, I think for many women, the big stressor, and that can cause physical changes, hormonal changes, is not speaking their voice, not saying no, not stepping away from a toxic relationship, settling on relationships that are not for the highest good of everyone, suffering abuse, sometimes subtle, suffering mental illness from partner, which is rampant. There's a lot of things that women have to endure. And the body responds if the woman is really not walking what she came here to do, if she's not empowered to speak their truth. The thyroid can shut down because your thyroid chakra is your voice.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot to it. I mean, how many women, I was talking to my colleague who is like a holistic sexuologist, and she made me realize how many women are actually really physically attracted to their men, and supposedly they have low libido, but they're just not, they lost the spark. Why? Maybe because the men really don't live up. Maybe they're abusive. Maybe they are just checked out, and you want to be inspired by a partner. You want to look up to your partner, respect your partner. How many relationships do we see like that, right? So where
Yeah.
is the woman? How fulfilled is the woman? How joyful and fulfilling is her life?
And I think that is important, is coming back to that joy. And I think when you've got a disease like endometriosis and you're struggling to try and conceive, which is, what my audience is doing. And I suppose hopefully many of those women are in a situation where they're in a happy relationship because they're at
Yeah,
the
I hope
beginning
so.
of their
Yes.
relationship, rather than, not everyone is. I have had
Yeah.
some clients who are, have got some relationship problems and they're thinking that, trying to get pregnant is going to fix that. But
Right.
even so, the joy often is lost, whether that is from finding some joy in their life. So you're right, it might not necessarily be from a guy, but they've lost the joy because of the stress of trying to conceive and not being able to conceive, and the stress of knowing they've got a disease, or they've just found out they've just been diagnosed with endometriosis because they've been told that they have unexplained fertility. These stresses, I think, are kind of like the
Yeah.
ones
Yeah, you're
on.
right. You're
Yeah.
right. You know your community. I'm just saying, in a broad spectrum,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
are women these days? And then the stresses
yeah,
of
yeah,
losing home, losing employment, losing, it's very volatile right now. Having to have bankruptcy, things happen. There's a lot of stress, and that stress goes physical. Um, I think one thing that, I had a couple of cases when I was able to help with infertility, just focusing on working on the virus, but the working on the virus plus some support for fertility. Um, Basically, we have to rebuild the person, remove the toxins, and provide nutrients,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then provide a container. So like you said, the woman can relax and get on a different journey, get on a self-healing, self-love, I am enough journey.
mm,
From that journey, you can build yourself up and you have a different viewpoint on your fertility and having a baby. Because I think, I come from Poland, and in Poland, not being able to have a child is almost like you're ostracized, or you ostracize yourself. It's like
mm,
women can't live without that. It's just, I don't know why. So they get lost in it. But if
yeah,
if they just could remember how beautiful they are and spend some time healing, the best trimester is premester. The best
yeah,
way to get pregnant is to spend a couple of months healing, building yourself up. My program is basically what it is. It builds yourself up and educate you. And so then you have a healthy and easier pregnancy, because your women want to get pregnant at all cost, but then they're still compromised. If they get
yeah,
they
yeah,
get that pregnancy, they're still compromised. The pregnancy may be really complicated. They are still not built up. The
yeah,
baby is
absolutely.
only as strong as the mother, physically, physiologically. The nutrients are coming from the mother directly. So how is that pregnant woman now caring for herself? And then the delivery of the baby can be really, really dangerous and taxing if you're not built up either. And then the complications may be that the baby, well, may have a lot of allergies, a lot of this, a lot of that, can't breathe, whatever that complications postpartum. And then if she is not built up, the common problem will be postpartum depression,
Yeah, yeah.
which is reiteration
Depletion.
of Hashimoto's
Mm,
triggered by EBV,
mm,
because this is the biggest change and fastest change in hormones, and hormonal changes are a reactivating trigger for women of EBV. And this is not tested. So if anybody has postpartum depression listening to it, please test for Hashimoto's and EBV and test correctly. And we have those correct markers listed on our website.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to ask you about thank you. That's super helpful. Just
Yeah.
reiterating what I always say to my community is the fact that it is all, and having been there very recently and a long time ago, it's also easy to be like, I just want to get pregnant now, now, now. And it's like,
Oh, be
actually,
careful what you wish for. Yes.
exactly. I mean, now, mother of a 5-year-old, as soon as that baby comes, oh my goodness me, there is no, there's no stopping that child and you being a mother and not being able to look after you and focus on you. And having that, like you said, the premester to fully make sure that you are strong, that you are healthy. So then you can carry a healthy baby, have a healthy pregnancy, and then really enjoy a young baby rather than feeling
Yeah.
depleted. Because there's nothing
Yeah.
worse than being depleted.
And it's totally doable because I saw the difference. There was a woman that came to me that had one baby already, couldn't have another, wanted another, wasn't ready, but she had a lot of problems. And her first pregnancy was tough. Everything was tough with that one. But we did the work and she did the work. And the pregnancy popped in within 4 months from working together, very unexpected. They didn't know that they were ready, but
Oh,
she did the work. She was like doing it. And the pregnancy was much easier. Delivery was much easier.
okay,
So
good. So yeah,
yeah,
sometimes slowing down and just taking your time to build yourself up, as you said. So yeah, thank you. That was a really good point.
yeah. There was another woman who had one baby and could not conceive. Her markers for Hashimoto's were sky high, really high. Couldn't figure it out. Lived in England and was 100% in. So we did one-on-one work for more than half a year. Like she changed everything. She changed literally. She just did what I asked, and she couldn't conceive. She has a healthy girl. She is now maybe 4 years old. So now she has two daughters. This was her dream. So, but
Oh,
she did,
amazing.
she just changed everything and said, forget it. I'm gonna do what it takes. And
Yeah.
we set the stage. It's
And
just
did the
there's no
work.
shortcut, ladies. If you want to get pregnant, give yourself and the baby a chance, but just take the time to unwind everything there, support the body, build yourself up, even if the clock is ticking.
Yeah, I would agree.
The
That
clock ticking is the
clock.
problem.
Exactly. And the clock ticking is the problem. But actually, what is 6 months? That
In the grand
time
scale of, yeah.
in the grand scale of things, it's yeah.
But that's
So
one level, the sperm quality is decreasing.
I was going to ask, the other
It
thing is,
really is.
yeah, from a men
It
point
really
of view,
is. So when I was
how
working with that particular woman, I was working with her husband too. It was a family affair. They changed the diet, they changed the food. She started to cook, she started to feel better, have more energy. So he had to have buy-in
yes.
because they were living a very regular toxic life. Like, regular life is toxic life. We just exposed to a lot of toxins. And so he improved. His eczema was gone. He has some fatigue problems. Guys struggle too. And he felt so much better. And so yeah, we worked on two.
So in terms of, I might come back to the diagnostic tests in a minute, but in terms of like if you've got EBV, if you've got active EBV, or you think you might have had active EBV, not active, sorry, because we're talking about mono there, chronic EBV. So if you think you've got chronic EBV, or it's like you haven't had a flare up for a while, what is it that you recommend in terms of lifestyle changes or complementary therapies and in terms of supporting recovery? Obviously, removing toxins, that is like a big part of it. What are the kind of key tips, maybe a couple of tips that you could give?
Oh.
That's
So
difficult.
yeah, so unfortunately, EBV is not like H. pylori. Let's do a protocol for 2 months,
Yeah.
retest, and it's probably gone. There's nothing else you can do. Oh, maybe hydrochloric acid, making sure you have it. It's not like that. I feel it's a lifelong teacher. I think
Okay.
it's in your face. And I think if you don't make corrections, it's going to constantly be in your face as a reminder. Where are you going? So some people have to hit the wall really to recognize my life is not what it needs to be. What am I doing? Why am I so sick? So I don't have like a thing to pull out of my sleeve. So that's why my book is almost 600 pages.
Yeah.
Because I don't know where people are. So you really need to clean your environment. The toxins, the environment, the dioxins from the air, the pesticides, herbicides, the chemicals that compromises you and feeds the virus. The stress. Stress is number one. We talked about it. You have stress, you have EBV. When you have stress, also, you deplete your nutrients. You have to replete them, especially B vitamins. So I would say chronically ill person with EBV, B vitamins, methylated are absolute must.
What about gut? What about the gut health?
The gut health?
Yeah.
Yeah. So people go on all kinds of diets. On average, 10 different diets in my community. They've tried everything. The worst diet for chronic EBV will be keto, high protein, paleo autoimmune. So all the therapeutic diets should have a time limit and a purpose.
Yeah.
And so let's say people say if you have autoimmune disorder, you have to be on paleo autoimmune. But that's not true necessarily. If you have Hashimoto's or lupus, and that's caused by EBV, you have to do the EBV work to turn it off. But paleo autoimmune is too restrictive. When people are on therapeutic diets, inevitably they develop deficiencies. And nutritional deficiencies are the number one in the diet, triggering causative element in reactivating EBV, literally. So as your nutritional status drops, the virulence, the aggressiveness of the virus increases. Does it make sense?
Yeah, yes.
So definitely. When people are stressed, so this is a triple dummy. When people are stressed, they're already oozing their nutrients out. They're urinating a lot of the magnesium, the B vitamins go because they are stress vitamins, you need them. So you're depleting yourself. But when you're stressed, you also stress eat. So you eat things for instant pickup in serotonin. So it's going to be high sugar, not nutritious foundational foods that will build you up. So that's a double whammy. And then the triple whammy is that when you stress, you don't absorb. You either hold and are constipated or you're flashing diarrhea. Like the gut is not interested in processing food or even having sex or procreating, by the way, in stress. The body is just interested in running, freezing, or fighting for your life. And in natural world, genetically, we have about 15 minutes for sprint and do something, pick up that fridge to save a child. It's like, how did I do that, right? But then we're spent. And that's how animals work. That's how we are designed genetically. But our stress never ends. Like if you have a tiger running after a zebra, the tiger has a couple of minutes of sprints. That's it. He can't run forever. So 15 minutes and everything is done. It's either breakfast or there's no breakfast. And then the zebra goes and shakes it off and graze. That's done. They're done. We're never done. That stress is constantly coming from a primitive part of the brain. The kind, the monkey brain, some people call it lizard brain. It's the one that constantly yucks. Fear, anxiety, what if, I'm not enough, all this. And that drives chemicals to create stress response, and stress hormones reactivate EBV. It's just as simple as that.
Okay.
So we have, So can you see how?
Yeah.
It's not like we can fix it with a little pill, but there are things that really help, and I list them in the book. And this is based on a long time I spent sifting through medical literature. there were a lot of things I found that worked in studies. So then I experimented with my patients. We just did things. And this is how I came up with the supplements that I always get people started with, because they stabilize you, they decrease the brain fog, decrease the oxidative stress, decrease the fatigue, clean up, turn down the virus, so you have more energy to do the deeper groundwork, change your diet, change this, change it, because when you're so sick, you can. And that's selenium, and that's lysine, and that's NAC, and that's zinc, and that's licorice, vitamin C, and vitamin E. And what am I missing? I'm missing something. There's a vitamin D. But they have to be at specific potency, specific forms, and specific timing. So I list it all in the book. And I advise people to work with practitioners, because some of them are very aggressive doses. So it's not do it yourself. I'm sorry, ladies, but it's a little risky, because
very complicated.
When we go for selenium, we go really high. And if you go too high, you can end up in ER. But that's what it takes with this virus, because, it's been around a long time.
So do you find, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, but it's like a computer virus. There's always a reason it's on, and you can turn it off. So it is completely possible. You just have to understand. Like we're talking about different areas of your life. Yeah, go ahead.
So you're always going to have, once you've got that virus, like you said, because it's a herpes virus, once you've got the virus, it's in you. You're not trying to get rid of the virus. You're trying to, as it were, tone it down, put it into sort of remission. And then...
Yeah, we have it. I mean, we have it. You don't live in a bubble. And if you don't have it, you'll probably contract it somehow, somewhere, kissing, or, blood transfusion is not tested for EBV. It's easily contaminated. So it's like, it really almost doesn't matter. You can't, pregnant women are really scared that they're going to give it to the babies. Probably you will. I mean, internally, externally, you kiss, but it doesn't mean that the baby will have EBV. It depends on their immune system and what you give as food, and environment.
So based on that, I'm gonna ask. It's maybe a controversial question. Yeah. If it's in everybody, and it's like you can't do anything about contracting it or not, is there any point in knowing whether you've got a flare up or not? I'm thinking just in the view of like endometriosis, there is so much you have to do with the healing part of endometriosis anyway, with your nervous system, your immune system, your gut health, your liver, all these other things. It's kind of one of these things where you might or you might not have have EBV that could well be one of the root causes associated with it. How is it going to help you to know whether you've got EBV, chronic EBV or not?
That's a very good question. So there are some studies suggesting that there may be a percentage of population of women with endometriosis that have had mono before.
Okay.
If you have had mono before, you are at a higher risk of reactivating, depending on the circumstances. And something like endometriosis can compromise you. And I would venture that a woman who has endometriosis is compromised. That's why she has it.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I don't have it. But I have solid brick walls, built in my system. You can be almost invincible. It's very hard for this virus to tip me over. So I would say, I would also venture to say that the work you would do for EBV is probably exactly the work you have to do for endometriosis. Same thing.
Okay, that's useful to know.
Same things. Like dairy is so inflammatory. Such a bad idea for endometriosis. Same here. For the human body, it's just not a good idea. It's very inflammatory. It's just, you see, we're going in the same direction. We're doing the same thing. The presentations may be different in a compromised woman, depending on all these components of the soul and the spirit and the body and the emotions, where the hormones. It's like we are such a mystery, such a beautiful combination. So for one woman, it can be endometriosis, for another, and can be, I don't know, it can be Hashimoto's.
Yes.
You compromise.
Yeah.
Something is compromised. You have exposure, toxic exposure, something. And you have to
Something
clean
that,
it up.
yeah.
Like you say, the gut, the liver, depends. Depends.
Yeah.
So people come with me and they have a bucket full. And if they just have EBV, it's plain and simple. Follow the process, done, easy. It's like, whoa, a couple of weeks, I already feel better. How is that possible? But most people have a bucket full, and we have to
Yeah.
untangle it. There are co-infections, there are hormonal
Yeah.
issues. Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, that was and it wasn't a dismissing question. It's the point that I suppose some people want to know, and some people, I same as you will have had clients who want to test and they want to know the answers, and other people
You can
don't
test,
want
yeah.
to know.
You can
Yeah.
totally test. I think testing, I believe testing is important. It's
Mm,
really important when it's needed. The only caveat with EBV testing is like testing for thyroid. It's incomplete and it's
yes.
misdiagnosed. So if anyone wants to test EBV, get my book or go onto our website and go to the lab page. We have like we thank you. We have a 15-minute free training video.
Mm-hmm.
I did a Facebook Live, we recorded it, where I stand with whiteboard and color markers and I explain each of the four, what they do, how to look at them, because you also need to know when to test to
Yes, I remember
understand
that
your
from your book.
results.
Yes.
Because if you test here, you may catch early antigen. But if you test here between reactivations, early antigen may be normalized, and you will think, I don't have current
Yeah.
infection.
Okay.
It's
Yes.
like, so I would watch that video. It's free, just get educated. You can also bet that in 85-90% of cases, the doctor will not test early antigen if you request it, because the panel traditionally doesn't include it. And for some reason, it's missed. And without early
Okay.
antigen, it's really hard to tell where you are. So, you want to test when you're really in your pits, like down on your back. That's where you want to test. But it's hard to test because you're so sick. You don't want to go and do the lab.
Yeah.
But that's when I would do it. Or do the test when you're feeling better and you're capable, knowing that early antigen may be better than it was, when you were in the dumps. So I had a question from a clinician, and that's a good story for everyone to remember to kind of frame it. There was a woman with Hashimoto. She had presentations that were like matching EBV perfectly. And there's a practitioner that I was training, and she was saying, it's perfect. I know it's EBV, everything matches. However, her early antigen is normal. What do we do? Right?
Mhm.
So my question was, when did she test? January. Okay. When did she feel like she was hit by a truck? Thanksgiving.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Big
So
difference.
it's like early antigen is like fluctuates. And it can fluctuate monthly in women with a bad case of EBV. It will fluctuate with periods. So every
I was going
month.
to ask that. Yes.
Yeah.
Does it fluctuate with the menstrual cycle at all? Like,
Yeah,
is
it
the
does because
it does?
hormones shift and hormonal changes cause reactivation. That's why I said postpartum is huge, because that's a huge change, like 360 of hormones. Once you have the baby, like everything switches. So that's why puberty, perimenopause, menopause, these are areas, times where you can reactivate. Um, I lost my train of thought now.
No, that's okay.
It's
You were
fine. It's
talking
fine.
about the menstrual cycle
Yeah,
reactivation
yeah. But if
and
you
when to
work on
test.
EBV, that goes away.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
it's much slower. And then maybe the reactivation is every year. But then you can anticipate it when you train, when you understand the virus. You know when to anticipate it, you know your triggers, you know your symptoms, and you can really take care of yourself jump on a protocol ahead of the time so you do not reactivate. And if you reactivate, all you need is 48 hours and you can turn it off, but you have to
Oh,
train.
really?
Yeah,
Oh, well,
so
that's
when I had
amazing.
so when I had vertigo, 48 hours, I took care of it and never returned. But you
Okay.
have to understand.
Do you have to understand your symptoms? I was about to say that. Is everybody different in terms of what their symptoms are?
Correct.
You said the classic one is fatigue and brain fog. Are there
There's
some other sort of nuances like the vertigo that are there other symptoms that are
tons of
indicated?
them, tons of
Okay.
them. There's people that have nosebleeds. There's people that have hypersensitivity to mosquito bites. They really get inflamed from that. There's people that have ringing in the ear. A throat inflamed lymphs are very common.
Okay.
And sometimes you say, I don't have chronic fatigue, I don't have brain fog, I have lupus, or I have Hashimoto's. Yep. So I have a quiz, like 4-page quiz on our website with different kinds of cancer, different kinds of autoimmunity, different kinds of common presentations, different kinds of uncommon presentations, all based on research. And you just check the boxes of your life, like, what have I had in my life? Because, rashes can
Yeah.
be EBV, may not, but can. There's so many things. 75% of cases of let me see, in 75% of mono presentations, there's headache involved, and people don't know it. Gut can be involved. All kinds of stuff. You just never know with people.
No, you
Fatigue
don't.
can be pain. It can
Yeah.
be pain, like
Okay.
fibromyalgia.
Yeah, yes.
And then
Yeah.
the autoimmune conditions, there's 7 autoimmune conditions that were shown in studies to be directly caused by EBV, and that MS,
Yeah.
that's diabetes type 1, celiac, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. What am I missing? There's one more. I'm
Okay.
blanking on it, but yeah, it's a great
No,
study.
thank
It's in
you.
my book.
No,
Uh,
thank you. And that is, yeah, and it's a fantastic book. It's a very thick book. I still working my way through between that and then juggling other ones. So yeah, it's
you know,
amazing.
it it's a reference book.
Yes,
I put
yes,
everything that we knew at that time, and then everything in my work that matched what you needed to do to recover. So like 1/3 is just, what do we know now for doctors? What do we know
yeah.
about this? How do we test? There's a lot of pitfalls there. So I just need to catalog everything. But it doesn't mean that all the studies that said, oh, this works, this works, doesn't mean that all of these are actually successful in clinical practice. So when I work only with things that deliver in 80% of the cases because I'm really process oriented.
Okay.
So yeah, so I need to write another book and kind of update people on the function of this book was really to bring EBV to black and white. Here's what we know. This is not resourced from the spirit of compassion
Yeah,
somewhere
yeah, yeah.
there.
It is, yeah, it's a
Etheric.
real
This
thing.
needs to bridge extremes. This is science. This is what we know. This is what we suspect. So it's like, it's grounded. And this is what I've done in my clinical practice where my patients recovered
And I was going to ask,
systematically.
yeah, and I was going to ask that in terms of when you work with people, just to kind of give my listeners that um enthusiasm is the wrong word, hope that like what I talk about is the fact that they do have the power to make changes, and those changes will help their body, give their body the tools that it needs to heal, as long as they go, along the right path in order to do that. As in, it's not all doom and gloom. Yes, unfortunately, we cannot change the world we live in,
Yeah.
and that is, hopefully over time we will change that. I mean, it's like I've been camping along the beaches here in Oman. Beautiful, absolutely stunning, like unpopulated. But the sad thing is, now compared to 10 years ago, it is absolutely littered with plastic. And fishermen's, nets, and it is so sad. And that is just it's the world we live in, and it's so sad. And I'm hoping that again will change. We will change that in the future. But some of those things are outside our control. But there are things that we can control, which you said we can control and choose what we put on our skin, in our mouths, the homes that we live in. And we can't do that all in one go. It takes time, and that's that having that patience and realizing and not becoming stressed by it. Because I know when I first came to this and I was too scared to go, and I was living in Jordan at the time, and it was like hearing that pollution, and it was like such a polluted city. I mean, you would sit in your car and it'd be like having your mouth around an exhaust. And I remember being too scared to open the windows, and it's having that fear then doesn't help your nervous system. So it's kind of realizing, control what you can control, and don't be overwhelmed by the knowledge that what is around you is not helping your body. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree 150%. And the thing is that the power is that you really vote with your dollar or with your money, whatever you invest, whichever cream you invest or whichever food you invest, you actually energetically, each person shifting that frequency of choice increases the higher vibration for the whole planet. We are all connected. So one woman making changes elevates the whole planet. We really do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we evolve. And that's how we will make changes. So that one individual, their personal choices coming from the heart and self-love make a big difference. People that come to me often say, I just want to be what I used to be. And I tell them, you won't. If I have anything to do with this, at the end of this process, you are there where you want to go back. You're going to be there.
Yeah,
because this is a journey. This is not like supplements and this is a journey of self-love. This is a journey of healing on all levels. And then at the end of it, you'll strip things that don't serve you. You'll strip relationships off that didn't serve you. You will make changes. Maybe people change their jobs, their profession. They finally walk away from a toxic environment. They start shining and being on purpose, being of purpose, and being the reason why they came to this planet. I believe everybody has a gift for this planet, for this lifetime. And people with EBV in particular are like the canaries in the mine. When I told you about profiling,
the
profiling for me is overachievers, type A personality, perfectionist, blah, 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 blah. They want everything yesterday.
All my community.
Yep. Yes. And that makes them
myself included,
especially vulnerable to EBV. We learn to be imperfect. We learn to embrace it, and we have to learn how to slow down. It's very hard for my community, but they are also empathetic. Mm-hmm. So empaths, so-called empaths, right? Yes. Highly sensitive individuals. There's science behind it. There's a documentary that shows it. You can watch it online. Every species has 20% of their individuals, every species, not just humans, that are empathetic. Humans too.
Like that.
But in an EBV community, I would say it's 98%.
Oh, wow.
Yes, gosh, that's a pattern.
That's a lot. That is a pattern.
Yes. This is why, yes, these are healers. These are people that are meant to do amazing things, helping people in one way or another. But I always ask them, where is your North Star? What kind of trauma happened in your life where you lost yourself? You stopped believing that you can do something that you loved when you were a kid, or something happened where we have to untangle all these layers. As you heal physically, you also heal your soul, and you start listening and hearing to the voice that is you. Who are you? And most women don't ask this question. They don't have the time. They're just, life is, like you say, multitasking and
on
all
the
that.
treadmill.
But yeah, I think at least the EBV, I don't know about endometriosis, may be similar. It forces you if you have a good support system and you know where to go, where you're going, if you have path forward, it forces you to work on your own healing journey, not just with supplements and stuff. It's a so
Yeah.
that's my biggest fun and joy, seeing my students take off and like they're traveling, they're going for that perfect job finally. They're
Yeah.
doing things. There was one that changed her life completely, moved from Jordan to Canada, changed careers, like because you can, because you understand finally who you are,
Yeah. Yes.
not settling. So I think for women, these severe conditions, severe chronic conditions, are really a reminder that something where we have to take a U-turn, where
Yeah.
we got ourselves in the wrong direction. It's muddy waters, and women know that there's something in there that is just not. This is not the life they hoped for.
And I certainly see it with my clients, the ones that make the big leaps, and myself included. In fact, it's not easy, but it's obviously easier to do the sort of nutritional changes and they're kind of like taking the supplements. But to do the harder changes, I mean, for me, it was realizing that the career I was in wasn't serving me, and then I stopped that and changed it and I've melded it. And that's how I've become to do what I'm doing now. But yet I still see the traits that I have in what I do now. So it didn't matter that it was a previous profession, that perfectionist, that these things, it doesn't matter what career you're in, it's those core values, it's those elements that then you have to work on, realizing you can't be a perfectionist, realizing that actually sometimes, so even having made those career changes, and
Yeah.
it is, those things are the things that take longer in life to work on and realize. And like you said, it's a healing journey that doesn't take. And this is part of also then becoming a mother, and then your child teaches you things, and then you know what I mean. It's a
Yeah.
lifelong changing
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah. The best thing I can say is my favorite word is grace. You got to give yourself grace. Always give yourself grace, because you always do the best within the resources and understanding you have. You always have, you always will. And it's a human condition.
Mm-hmm.
You're just a human condition. But when we strip all layers of it, at the bottom of it is one misconception. I'm not enough.
Yeah.
Because your parents didn't love you enough. They didn't tell you go for it, you can do anything. They didn't tell you you can be anyone you want, because you can. They didn't tell you all that. In most childhoods that didn't happen. And so we compensate. It doesn't matter intellectually that you know this. When things happen, there's still this driving force. I have to overcompensate. I have to do more. And that's where you don't say no enough. You don't say, you don't walk away. I mean, I'm human too. Happened to me too. Hey, we edited this book so many times. I still see typos in it. And it's like, you know what? It's helping
Enough.
people. That's okay.
Enough.
Enough is enough.
Enough.
I can
Yes.
give myself grace and it's okay. I'm not perfect. I never said anything that I do is perfect. So I
Yes.
have to give people grace. I give myself grace. So I
I
think
like that.
that's the biggest exercise for women.
Yeah.
Give each other grace, give oneself grace.
Thank
They are the best moms they ever will be. There's no manual for that.
Yeah.
But understanding better what the heart is saying, connecting to the heart is a big one.
Mm.
Because when you are in joy, you heal. You
Yeah.
can't be stressed out. The stress hormones can't be up when you're sitting in your joy. So women, you have to do more things that give you joy.
Yeah. I like
Whatever
that.
that means. Having a
Yes.
tea and reading a book. It's like closing the door. Okay, everyone, family, 1 hour, the door is closed. There's a message. Do not disturb. I'm just gonna put some music on and read a book and put my feet on and have some herb tea, and just that's my time. There's that concept of having me day.
Yes.
Thursday, me day. I go massage, I go this, I go that. Maybe I have a home sauna, maybe I take a hot bath, maybe I slow down, or maybe I don't do any videos or any online, emails,
Yeah.
something different for
Something that's
yourself.
for you. Yeah. For me, it's a
Something,
bath.
even
Oh,
if an hour. Women
yeah.
don't do that because we feel we serve everyone and we have to do everything and we like give because we overcompensate. And if we say no, we are told we are selfish. And that's the hardest thing for a woman to hear, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Thank you. Thank you. That's a really lovely way to end the podcast. Where can women find you? I will share all of this on the show notes as well.
the easiest way is EBV help. So EBV help.com. Easy to remember. We have
Perfect.
everything there. We have links there. I would sign up for newsletter there because then we also invite people to like 28-day video challenge. We have about 50 video trainings free on our YouTube channel about, EBV and depression, EBV and anxiety, EBV and hormones, EBV and
Oh,
this, EBV and
perfect.
that, like one topic at a time. Should I do it? Last week should I do a detox if I have EBV? You talked about
Yeah,
liver and
yeah.
stuff like that. The book, obviously, there is a free quiz you can take on the website with, if you're not sure, those 4
Mm-hmm.
pages mapping, like, do I have history of this? Like, oh, before you even read the book, that can be an
Yeah.
eye opener. If you get on newsletter, then any training I do, you will know I'm doing it. On the November the 2nd, we're gonna have a viewing, watch party. Dr. Carnahan, Jill Carnahan, I don't know if you know of her. She has a doctor-patient documentary. She had
Okay.
mold, she had Crohn's, she had all
Okay.
kinds of, yeah,
Yeah.
she's one of the best functional medical doctors. And she's one of the few doctors that I know that has a working protocol for EBV. So, she interviewed me too. So she gave me permission to do a watch party for her movie.
Oh,
So we're gonna
brilliant.
do that. So if you're in a community, there's a lot that we
A
try
lot
to
going on.
provide regularly. And then I have free trainings and like $27 trainings and $47 trainings. And we
Okay.
have a masterclass series. So if people have mold exposure, that has a lot of resources for that. And there's a huge resource for labs, huge resource for traveling, how to travel
Okay.
without getting sick and
Yeah.
things like that. The website has a whole page on dietary recommendations, like what do you need to understand about the virus, how to
So
eat, like
lots.
really big,
Yeah.
simple, straightforward. So you are not restricting food unnecessarily.
Yeah. Which I
Those
agree. I
therapeutic
don't
diets, yeah,
like to
therapeutic
do
diets are
unnecessarily.
concerning
Mm-hmm.
because you need to know where to stop it and you need to know why
Yeah.
you're taking it. There's the 2-3 months, not lifetime.
Yeah.
So, we try to leave a legacy and have everything set up for people. And the website is designed to be evidence-based. If I
Mm-hmm.
have an opinion and based on patterns, and based on research, and based on my patients, it's not based on, oh, I had EBV, I healed, and this is what I do because,
Yeah.
everybody's different.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
my approach is patterns and research and
Yeah.
then confirming in clinical practice. So it's like it's solid for people. So it's there. It's there if
Brilliant.
somebody is feeling like, I want to look at it. Um the website has it all. We also have a lab link to a consumer direct lab.
Okay.
People
In the
don't
US.
know.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
need a doctor, and they created the right panel for us so people can do
Oh,
it
brilliant.
locally. So, we try to provide any layer or level of support wherever people are on this journey. So
Amazing.
eventually, EBV will be like flu or better. You know what to do with it. It's not a life sentence. You don't have to be sick. It's treatable. It's reversible. On all that's all possible. So that I would end on that note. It is
That's
treatable and
amazing.
reversible.
Yeah. And that's And it's been fantastic talking to you through the whole of that, and also to then come to realize that actually there's so much that you can do for it, and the work that you have done to raise the profile, the research and everything is just fantastic. So thank you for everything you've done for it.
You're doing an amazing job too for ladies. So thank you for your advocacy.
I am slowly trying to share my journey, and then yes, the same. Thank you. What's one thing to finish off? It's something that I always ask everyone I interview. What is one thing that you would share with my listeners today? What one thing?
You are enough and you're never alone.
Thank you. That's good. Very good. You're enough. I like it. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And I know that the listeners will have loved it as well. So thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode and found some useful tips and actions you can take away and put into practice. If you loved listening, be sure to subscribe so you'd never miss an episode. It would be amazing if you could take a minute to leave an Apple or Spotify review. Your feedback helps us reach more women who might benefit and keeps the podcast going strong, and it only takes a second. If you know someone who would love to listen to this episode, please share it with them. So this season, I'm introducing the podcast goodie bag, where you will get access to a range of fantastic freebies contributed from our guests. To do this, you just have to sign up to the EndoFertility mailing list, which is where you'll be the first to hear my inner thoughts, tried experiences, and the latest products and service launches. The link to the podcast goodie bag sign up page is in the show notes below. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next week for another episode.